I'm sure a lot of you already know who Pilyeon is, but if you don't, I'm going to show you some of their works, and I'm sure right now you regret not knowing this artist before. Pilyeon's style is a mix of semi-realism and manhwa, which is a very popular art style, but Pilyeon's is on a whole new level. I wanna get to new level too. These are some of Pilyon's work I collected for this study. I'm gonna go with this piece because I think this is simple enough for our first study. It's in front view, the lighting is also quite simple. It's perfect. To draw realistic eyes, make the lines more rounded. Pilyon's eyes are quite sharp. They're like cat eyes. So I'll make the outer corner curved upwards a little. This is a bit similar to the eye tutorial I found on Xiao Hongshu in my previous video, so I will implement some of that in this study as well. To achieve Pilyon's eyes or semi-realistic manhwa eyes look in general, this is what I would do. First, make the eyes rounder. I will place a comparison on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. Second, draw the lacrimal caruncle, or in layman's term, tear duct. Trust me, I'm a doctor. No, I'm not. Aegyosal is a must. Same thing with lashes, upper and lower. Pilyeon tends to draw double eyelids. This is not always necessary in semi-realism, but I'll do that for the sake of this study. I will duplicate this eye to the other side. Oh. This is what I don't like about drawing front view. You'd have to draw identical eye to the other side. Sure, you can duplicate it, but the iris always F things up. Pilyeon actually draws the nose really simply with just 2 lines. Maybe because it's front view, we'll do more a difficult angle after this. I actually struggle in drawing the smile. How did Pilyeon do it? It's a slight smile, like a very small smirk, like a confident main character. My drawing just looks like an evil Barbie. This is Cafe, by the way. I'm drawing Cafe, not Barbie. But now that I think about it, he would make a really nice Barbie. Hoyo first. Cafe, Barbie, doll, when? Pilyeon's drawings tend to have long faces, not because they're sad, it's just their art style. The chin is also more pointy, but with rounded tip. It makes the face look slimmer. Pilyeon doesn't seem to draw the face with a lot of details, save for the eyes. They seem to focus the details on the hair. I don't normally draw detailed hair, mostly because of skill issue, but I'll try my best. Detailed outfit is also one of Pilyeon's unique traits. They draw a lot of armors, a lot of frills, and Victorian-inspired outfits. However, if I were to do that along with studying Pilyeon's art style, my brain would lose half its original mass. And it's already very small. I do plan to do a dedicated study for painting metal, golds, fabrics, all these different materials, because learning to paint these materials would help a lot when you want to draw different types of outfits, accessories, or even backgrounds. Let me know if this is something you'd be interested in, and I'll try to make a video about it. Alright, so this is my first attempt to study Pilyeon's art style. It turns out to be more Barbie than Cafe, but he has Barbie girl energy, so I'm not complaining. I will not be painting this sketch because I'm saving it for our next artwork. It looks like Pilyeon did line art on this one, so I wanna try that as well. I will not go into details on line art because I think it's a boring process, but I will highlight some of the important parts. I noticed Pilyeon draws 2 lines for the upper lash line, then fills it with shading. It makes the upper lash line appear lighter and more natural instead of being too dark. This also makes it easier to determine where to place the lashes as well. Make sure to watch your line weight. They need to vary so your drawing looks more interesting. Rule of thumb for lining eyes. The line gets thinner nearing the inner corner. I'll duplicate the eyes and start lining the rest of the face. A lot of beginner artists struggle in drawing semi-realistic noses. I used to be like that as well, spending too much time perfecting the nose even though it's only a small part of the portrait. But Pilyeon draws it very simply. It's like shonen anime noses. But that doesn't take the semi-realistic look away from their works, because other components in their drawing are supporting that look. And it directs us to focus on other things in the drawing, like the eyes and hair and outfit, which Pilyeon seems to highlight in all of their artworks. Speaking of hair, I don't think I have the patience and skill to draw it like Pilyeon, and I think they use a very small brush to line the hair, which I'm not a big fan of, but here's what I learned. You know, sometimes anime hair would go like this. Well, don't do this for semi-realism. Consider the hair as ribbons. When you bend a ribbon, it goes like this, right? Well, same goes for hair, especially if it's curling outwards. Draw it overlapping first and then erase the excess. And yeah, I think that's all I want to highlight. I don't think there's anything interesting in line arting the clothes. So let's go inside this time machine and skip to where I finished the line art.
2,000 years later.
Hi, welcome back. You were in a coma. The line art is done, you can color it, but I'm gonna shade it with shades of gray. Very Christian of me. Shading in gray sounds simple, but notice that it becomes darker in certain areas, then fades to lighter gray. For example, around the eye holes. This is darker, and then it fades to light. Same with under the nose and under the chin. You can also apply this for shading hair. The top half of the shading is generally darker. To make it fade naturally, you can use smudge tool or apply the darker shade with low opacity brush. I really recommend doing studies with shades of gray before you guys practice with colors. It gives you a better understanding of light and shadow and will help you a lot with rendering. I actually tried to color this following Pilyon's color palette, but I wasn't too happy with how it turned out, so I just stopped. But I'm really excited to start the second study where we will paint and render instead of doing line art. This is the piece for our second study. I know, muy caliente. Is that lipstick or strawberry jam? I hope it's lipstick because smearing jam on your face is just nasty. I will start a rough sketch. I don't know how Pilyeon starts their sketch, so I'm sketching my usual way, which looks shit. Next, I will draw the eyes with double upper lash line like before. Now the nose is more complex than the previous artwork because of the angle, so normally I would simplify the nose like this and just ignore the nostril on the right side and then shade it kinda like this. Pilyon's drawing is more realistic, so I will add the nostril to the sketch and I'll show you guys how to paint it later on. For this piece, I'm drawing yet another portrait of our Barbie girl, Cafe. Now that I look at it, Pilyon's drawing is kinda look like Cafe if he's criminally insane. I know Cafe doesn't wear gloves, but I wanna do some fabric study, so I'll leave it there. I colored the whole sketch with gray and then apply soft shadow using the airbrush. Yes, this will be another grayscale study. A lot of Pilyon's artworks are in grayscale, and maybe that's why their rendering is a gift from the heavens. For easier shading, choose a hard brush that has faded tip. For example, I use flat watercolor opaque. Remember, for volume and dimension, dark shadows fade into lighter shadows. The right side of the nose bridge would be darker than the rest. However, if you look at Pilyon's art, there's also faint shading on top of the nose bridge. This faint shading is something that a lot of artists miss, so pay attention to that. I will continue to apply shading to the base color. I'm just mapping out the shadows here. Also, remember there's something called bounce light, so I'm erasing the right side of the face a little. I'll start rendering the nose. Contrary to many beliefs, underneath the nostrils are actually lighter. You would think it's covered in shadows because of the position, but no, it's lighter. I don't know why either. Never draw the nostrils in very dark gray or pure black. It will cause them to look bigger than you intended. By the way, leave the tip of the nose in lighter shade. I never applied such thick lipstick on my portraits before, but I think I should have. This is so much fun. Is it weird that it kinda looks like Taylor Swift at this point? The method I always stand by is to finish the painting as a whole, which means you shouldn't hyper-focus on one spot. Does the mouth look weird even though you spent like 30 minutes on it? Don't care, move on. I'm sure Pilyeon would approve of this method. What they won't approve of is probably the way I paint hair. I tried following Pilyeon's drawing, but since the hairstyle is different, I thought I could just, wing it. Maybe I should stop pulling things out of my ass. Let's move on to the gloves first. As you can see, there are many creases and highlights on it, so the fabric is probably satin. It looks complicated, so I decided to paint the bigger shadows first, which are mostly around the back of the hand down to the forearm. Since it's made of satin, it would have a high contrast of light and shadow. The contrast would differ depending on the material. For example, cotton fabric wouldn't have as many highlights compared to satin or silk. Oh, this could be silk. Simplifying fabric could be a nightmare because there are a lot of creases, a lot of folds. So my advice is learn from somebody else's drawing, like I'm doing right now. Small creases usually formed around the joints because that's where the fabric stretches. Most of them are shaped like triangles or check marks, but always consult with your reference if you're unsure. I will go back to rendering the hair. This hair will show up in my nightmares. great. I decided to shade it with my usual method, but the right side looks different from the left side, which is just super. Pilyon's detailed hair must have taken years to master. My idiot self thought I could do this in 72 hours. So, like any other problems, I need to compromise. I added some strokes to the hair shading to emulate the hair strands. I use a small brush for this so it looks more detailed. Now the right side is not that much different than the other side. Pilyeon painted the left side of the hair so much lighter because of the light source. Most of the shading is on the lower side. The lighting will look more dramatic this way. Because the hair is light, add a dark shadow on the skin below the fringe to keep the hair from blending into the skin. For the eyes, shade the white part first. I'll shade it darker than usual, like Pilyeon did. Sometimes I shade the white part lighter than the rest of the painting, but in actuality, depending on the light source, it could be very dark. I will not go into much detail about painting the eyes because it's actually pretty similar to the Xiao Hongshu eyes I did before. Even the way they add hatchings to the iris. I'm not saying they copy each other or anything, but this method might be very popular in Chinese and Korean artist community. My hair seems to lack contrast, so I will add some darker shadows, mostly on the bottom. Okay, let me be honest. I hate how the hair turned out. Not Pilyon's fault, obviously. My execution is just so bad. Spreading the strawberry jam on there? Yeah, you like strawberry jam, don't you? I'm just kidding. I adjusted the contrast for a bit using filter. And so, what's the moral of this study? Well, obviously, don't just spend 72 hours trying to paint like the masters.